of Kansas City. Quick question. Barbecue of choice. Who's my gauge, folks? Q39, Arthur Bryant's, McDonald's McRib. Okay, good. Thank God. All right, good deal. All right, so with that, let's get rolling. We'll skip the unusual slide here because you just saw some of that. So, one of the things I want to really encourage you to do in your job is be lazy. Now, don't tell your mom this, right? I remember eighth grade, Mr. Caleb was my computer science teacher. We were learning BASIC. This video is going to be all over the place. We got it on the camera for like 1 second and gone. It was big, huge. Anybody remember the tractor printers? Where you could make some sweet-ass banners? Yeah, like the four of us that were that old. All right, cool. It was this really cool thing in like the 80s, but he had this the best programmers are the laziest, or something like that. I remember my mom went into parent-teachers conferences and came home pissed. She was so mad. She's like, I can't believe that Mr. Taylor guy is telling me to be lazy. And I tried to explain, like, well, the computer's good at one thing. Doing the same thing over and over again. So help the computer do the thing for you over and over again. And oftentimes, the simplest answer is the best solution. So when you're working on a complex thing, be lazy. Try the simple stuff first. Don't wait till the end. And probably some of you, sometimes get stuck trying to solve a problem in the most complicated, fancy way possible, because I know, with giant air quotes, that the dead simple thing is not going to work. And then 4 hours later, after reading documentation, Google, a ton of Stack Exchange, I'm like, well, let's just try this. And of course, it works. So let's try that simple thing here. I'm going to walk you through that scenario. And the reason I say that is, how many of you have heard the term APT? What does it stand for? What's the A? Ooh, we just collected this. This is going to be cool. P. T. What? I like the taco answer. And I overslept it. I cooked some tacos and some barbecue. I'm really hungry now. Yeah, advanced persistent threat. But so many times that advanced persistent threat, the advanced part's not all there. But if you read any breach notification, right? Wall Street Journal, whatever, an advanced attacker compromised our network, blah, blah, blah. And realistically, a 16-year-old kid in mom's basement. But that doesn't play well in the media. Like, oh yeah, well, this kid did a crap job and we had a default password. Right? You always spin it as the advanced persistent threat. If you ever keep an eye on some of the APT, one of the smartest things that they do is just use dead simple stuff, off-the-shelf tools, because you can't do attribution to it. It's much harder. And frankly, it just works. So to be the APT, many times, get me on camera again. Many times the real APT isn't very advanced. And the P is sometimes questionable. Now the T part, that's right, okay? Here's a scenario. Equifax, a little bit over here. Equifax does all the credit monitoring stuff, right? Tracks everything you've ever done in your entire life. The scenario here was and this is a case study, we see this kind of thing time and time again. March 2017, the CVE is announced. Right? Anybody know what the CVE was? Struts, right? And good stuff there. In May, the breach occurs. 2 months. Right? What was the P in APT again? Persistent. They're so persistent, it took them 2 bloody months to find a way in. Right? And then, of course, after they're in, the detection was in July. And we see stuff like this over and over again in like the Verizon data breach report, where the bad guys are getting in, and they're in there for months, many months, before we detect them. The only reason in my personal opinion, and frankly it's probably much stronger than that we're getting better at detection is because the ransomware operators are like, it's Saturday, I'd like to party. Right? And so they throw up the ransomware screen like, I want some money, we're gonna get some Cristal, go to the club. I'm not cool, I don't know what the kids do these days. But, right, that's the biggest reason why this is getting shorter and shorter. But this scenario, we see this time and time again. Right? Here's an article. I tried to find better updated links. I didn't find a ton that were like 2023, but the story is the same. Here's an article from 2020, above the headline here. Infamous Russian hacker group here, big old APT. This article is from May of 2020. They were using a vulnerability from August 2019. And if you look at the stuff that's more recent, not as quite cool of a slide, honestly, but the same sort of information. You're going to see a ton of Fortinet, Exchange servers, but vulnerabilities that have been around for a while, right? How many months is it between August and May? Can somebody math? We got nerds in here. Can somebody do that real quick in your head?
10, 9?
More than one. Good answer. I like that high confidence intervals, like less than 20 years, more than 3 seconds. Done, right? Yeah, it's like, let's say 9 months, right? You know what else you can make in 9 months? A human. We can get real human. We can breed patchers. We can make humans that will do the patching for us. Like, let's vulnerability come out. Let's make Todd. Right, another similar one, October 2020, the CVE, the number to the left here is the year, right? This is October 2020. I had a more recent one that didn't show up as well in the slide deck. The story's the same. Top left here, we see a 2019, right? We can create a baby here. 2019, 2019, 2019, 2018. This kid can walk. And then we saw an eye test, 2015. This kid can actually do the patching and read the manual. Right? How many of your 5-year-olds could just do next, done on an install? Right? Like, we could have made an entire cast of people whose sole job, it's like the world's crappiest sci-fi movie. Where you were pre-selected at birth, like, yeah, this is not going to be very smart, let's make it a patcher. But we see these types of vulnerabilities over and over again. And it's not typically the brand new, latest and greatest 0 day that's leading to a lot of these compromises. It's these old issues that are floating around and frankly off-the-shelf exploits. Right? Because if you're a real advanced adversary and you have some new, brand new O day, you want to save that for special time. Right? You don't want to blow that like way earlier, like, well, we can get in this dead simple way that everybody knows about, or we can get our super secret sauce and then burn them. And of course, we don't want to do some of that, right? Let's talk through some other fun and interesting scenarios here. How many of you are pen testers, offensive in some way, shape, or form? I see the I offensive shirt, I love it. A couple of people, they're definitely in the back, which is what I expected. You got people. Yeah. One of the things that pain in the butt many times is bypassing some of the next-gen AV, EDR, whatever the acronym of the day is. And sometimes it's the dead simple crap that works. One of my favorite, more recent fixes to get around some of those detections is just make a file of it. Antivirus looks at it like, we should scan that. Cool, let's scan it. Now it's too hard. That file is big, it's going to take time. It's like asking your kids to do the laundry upstairs. Like, it's too much, Mom. You made it all, man. Well, stuff like that. And just jump to the end of like dictionary words or all the sonnets from Shakespeare. And he's like, well, it looked bad, but this Shakespeare guy is great. And his scores better and allows us to run. Another fun one we had. How many of you are familiar with a tool called Netcat? A lot of hands for Netcat. Netcat is a very simple tool where we can just send raw communication back and forth. And we use it to send files back and forth. We can also use it as a backdoor shell. So you can pipe it into your bin sh, your terminal prompt, CMD, something like that, and use that as a backdoor shell. Now, every antivirus on the face of the planet says this is bad. You'll be like, yeah, this looks sketchy. Any of you use Nmap? Right? Fantastic port scanner. With Nmap, there is a tool called Ncat. It's the same bloody thing, but it's signed by the Nmap team. So AV is like, oh, this is Netcat, it's bad. Oh, wait, for Nmap? Fair enough. It's just dead simple stuff like that. One of my favorites, a great tweet here from Jeff McJunkin, was looking at some of the AV bypasses. I could do an entire talk on AV bypasses. Trying to keep it a little bit broader for the keynote slot. He was looking at a tool, CTF tool, and there's another tool called Defender Check. And what that does is identifies where in that file the bad thing is. And found inside the file, the bad part was the name of the author. That was the only flag. So we renamed it Tavis Ormandy to Tavis Zomandy. He literally took the executable and got one of those crappy glasses with the nose and the mustache. You're like, no, he's not, I'm not that guy. And AV's like, yeah, fair enough, come on in. You're definitely not a bad dude. And it works. And we see things like this time and time again here. One of my favorites, and I say this as an offensive person, my God, the password stuff has got to die. It has got, like when I first started pen testing, exploits were the thing. It was like MS 08, 067 everywhere. We used to, when I was starting pen testing, back in the olden days, like my friends and I would get on site and we would race. We're like, who can get to domain admin faster? And whoever lost had to buy lunch. We had a scenario, Ollie and I were on site. Actually, it was in Kansas City now, think about it. And we're like, cool, let's race. So we set up our computers the night before, got a bunch of commands ready, got on site. The guy dropped us in, gave us our network connections, and I'm like, blank, just hit enter on all my terminals. And guys said, hey, I'll get you guys some coffee. Comes back, he's like, how you guys doing? Oh, we have domain admin 2 different ways. And he laughed. And we're like, no, we're done. Right? Now, a lot of those exploits have gone away. I know I showed you some of those older ones. We don't see as many remote compromises. Patching tends to be a little bit quicker. But back in the olden days, it was just crazy. This software got better. We got additional memory protections. It got harder. So the attackers moved to client-side software. So we used to attack things like a Flash like crazy, all the PDF readers, browsers, and it was just Wild West. And then that got better, and eventually we started going to the people, because the people will pick some terrible, terrible passwords. Any auditors in the room? You look sort of ashamed. You're like, oh, I am. I'm here to change fields. Nobody needs a sales engineer. Yeah, according, and not you, but more broadly, at most organizations, how often are we supposed to change our passwords? 90 days. 90 days. Anybody know why? fair enough.
Because people
No,
like to
there's actually a great story. So, when Moses came down from the mountain, the third tab. No, it was probably two guys, and I'm definitely gonna be two dudes here, who made this up. Like Scott and Todd are in the office in like the 90s saying, hey, Todd, do you think we should change pastors? Why would we do that, Scott? Well, if the bad guy is in, and we change it, then he's not in. That makes sense. Sort of. How often should we change it, Todd? I don't know. Like 4 times a year? Cool. How many days are in a year? 300 or so. Right? You divide that by 4. What's 1/4 of a year? It's about 90 days. It's not even good math. Right? There's like 91 and stuff like that, right? So we see that kind of stuff. So of course people change their password, they get worse and worse passwords. Any help desk people here? All right, front row, you 3. What's the call you get all day? January 2nd. Can you change my password, right? People take a nice long break. They have friends and family, they get a nice break, they have some drinks, they have friends of their family over. They have more drinks because of the family. Go back to work after New Year's, giant drinking day, come back and they're like, I forgot my password. But you know what else changes every 90 days? This is easy.
The seasons.
The season, right? Right now we're in fall. Okay, some of you are a little confused. Yeah, fall. Also, autumn would be an acceptable answer for playing Jeopardy rules here. What is autumn, please? Right? And there's an autumn this year. Ideally, there's an autumn next year. Right? We have like, I'm going to use the capital A, lowercase autumn. But it's not long enough. We gotta have like at least 8 characters. We also need a number. And the people are like, if only there was a way to differentiate this fall for the next fall and add a number to it. And they sit there for probably hours to solve the greatest unknown mystery of mankind and come up with autumn 2023. Now, if they need a secure password with a special character, what do they pick?
Exclamation point.
Exclamation point. Everybody got that one. You need a car. Right? That's why. You're a Tildy guy. I think we found the serial killer number. Why do we use the exclamation point besides this guy? Top left key on the keyboard, right? I have a password manager that generates random uppercase, lowercase, and numbers, and I'll paste that sucker into a website. It's like, this is the worst password I've ever seen. And then you have exclamation point, like, great password. You're like, was it really that bad? Or is it check just complete garbage, right? And we see stuff like that. You have organizations where brand new first day of work, they want to welcome you to the organization, so they set your passwords a welcome one. You're terrified, it's a brand new job. Is this going to be a good job? Am I going to be okay here? Am I going to have friends here? Gotta get a good coffee. So they're nervous, like change your password right now. Welcome to. Oh wait, secure. Exclamation point, bam, done. Right, this job's gonna be easy. But we see this kind of thing over and over again. And I, as the attacker, I don't need everybody to do this. I just need one. I just need a single person to do this. I was doing a pen test not too long ago. And the first, that's the organization that was telling them what I was gonna do with the passwords season and years. Like, that's not gonna work here. I got excited. I was so happy, I'm like, thank God, I can like, it's gonna be a little bit harder. And I'm like, do you ban the passwords? Do you have some sort of shim that looks for these words and prevents them? He's like, no. We just change passwords every 30 days. And I waited for it to click. It didn't. It should have been a patch. It didn't click. So I told him, like, hey, what if I tried the month and the year? He said, oh shit. So run back. And the first account we got, now let me back up. There's two business units in organizations that most people are terrified of. The first is IT. We're not scared of IT. We came from IT. The other one is HR. We're all terrified of HR. Right? Does anybody understand their insurance plan at all? Cool. Can you come and hang out and explain mine? Good. Right? You get a billion attachments. They're the people who fire you. So you get an email from HR, you're like, either I really need to read this, or it's the last email I'm ever going to see. I don't know which one. It's like Russian roulette. The account we compromised was director of HR. We have all the personnel data. We got all the attachments we can send. Client says, well, you can't use that because that's not fair. I was like, well, I mean, I get your point, but what are you going to do? Call up Ivan in Moscow and be like, comrade, this is not cool. You can't, this is too easy. Don't you want to make it harder? And you'll probably swear back at you in Russian, and I should learn some Russian swears to be fun. Right, like, something like that doesn't work. We're doing a different test. They had a development network on the internet. Not hardened, not patched, not vetted. Got it that way, and they want us to remove it from the report. We're like, well, that shouldn't have been there. I mean, that's the whole point of the test, is to identify that. And if I remove it, it's like it never happened, but it did. It's like, well, we're gonna get in trouble for it. I'm like, well, I mean, you don't do that? I mean, I feel bad, but at the same time, it wasn't one computer. It was what do you call a group of computers? A fleet? A sadness of computers. Giant group of computers. I mean, I'm not even sure how much time it took to set up and put all of these computers on the internet. I was kind of impressed in a weird, disgusting sort of a way there. So we see stuff like that over and over again. I tweeted on Twitter, or do we X now? What's the verb? Like, tweet used to be like, it's actually in the dictionary. And now it's like a post. How freaking boring is that? Yeah, I'm calling it Twitter. Yes, good. Right? Like, you know, all sorts of easy, guessable passwords, unfortunately, ends up being the thing that just is the gift that keeps on giving. So, if you haven't learned yet, I'm not that smart. Going back to the be lazy, try the simple way, a lot of that stuff just works. A number of years ago, a friend of mine was doing some research on a IoT camera. And he published a blog post, and I know that the text isn't going to show up really well, but I'll explain it to you, where he bought a TrendNet camera, did some reverse engineering of the firmware, and then found inside the firmware, using binwalk, there was 3 different chunks. One of the chunks was identified by binwalk as a root file system, a Linux file system. So he used DD, because back in those days, binwalk would split it up for you, and started looking around in, clicker, there it is. Started looking around that file system. And in the server directory, he found a directory called Anani. Guess what Anani is short for? Anonymous. So inside of that Anani directory, there was mjpeg.cgi, which allowed anonymous view access to the camera. Oh, well, that's not great. Now, I wanted to do some of this too, so I bought a different camera. I went to eBay, I just checked the receipt, it was $43.68 to buy a camera. Downloaded the firmware, literally did the hack by numbers that he did. Found a similar sort of Linux file system. Now, if you've got a Linux file system, where's one of the first places you look when you compromise a Linux host? Etsy Shadow, and what's the other half of that? Etsy Password. So in all Linux systems, the password used to be in Etsy Password. That's why it's named that. So they moved it to Etsy Shadow, changed the permissions, but in all Linux systems, and brand new IoT devices, it all goes in Etsy Password. But that's okay, because the entire thing runs as root, so it doesn't matter anyway. They were also in Etsy Password using this really fancy cryptography, this encryption that's really hard to break, called base 64. So you could go look in that file, get the password. Now, what I started doing is I looked really quickly between the web interface and that Etsy Password file. And in Etsy Password, there was root, or admin, or something like that. And in the web interface, there was admin, and I could change that password and update the file. Cool. There was another one called viewer, which gave you view access, non-admin access. They existed in both places. I looked in Etsy Password, I found factory test. Wasn't in the web interface. Can't change that password, you don't know it exists. Same password for every single device everywhere in the world. So I emailed these folks. They didn't have a bug bounty program. And I was like, I don't know about you, but I have money. Anybody else? Yeah. Sweet. My guys in the back, my pen testers. Love it. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I emailed them. They gotta be very careful when you do this. If you email them like, you need to pay me, or else I'm gonna tell the whole world and crash all your stuff. There's a very specific term for that. It's called extortion. So you have to be very careful when you compensate for exclusive disclosure of a security vulnerability that could impact your brand negatively, blah, 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 blah. And then they just write you a big old check. So they wrote me a $3,000 or $4,000 check. It took me literally, I followed the other guy's directions, step by step, and made a couple of grand, and it took me about 2 minutes. I will never make that quantity of money that quickly ever in my life. Come on, Powerball. Right? But that's never gonna happen again. And it was literally following somebody else, trying what somebody else has done, and literally hacked by numbers here. Here was the final piece to show up on the screen. Similar vein. How many of you are football fans? I expected a little bit of excitement with that. The Chiefs are good. It's not like we're in Chicago where people hang their head down. I'm a Bears fan. We don't have to talk about it. Yeah, Chiefs, right? I'm a huge Green Bay Packers fan. We're not even in the same conference, and my team is going to be terrible. Give me a break, all right? I love Mahomes. Mahomes is from 30 minutes away from where I live. I love that guy. They're my AFC team. But I was trying to watch the NFL on my TV. And there was an app called NFL Game Rewind or Game Pass, something like that. And I wanted to show it on my TV. At the time, Amazon and Apple were angry with each other. They had this fight, and it's off again, on again. It was bad a number of years ago. And I would try to play it on the TV from my iPad. The app and stuff didn't exist yet. Fire Stick wasn't a thing yet. And it said, AirPlay disabled. I was like, oh man. And then I thought about it, I'm like, wait a second. If it's disabled, that means that feature is there, but Amazon's like, yeah, screw you Apple people. I'm like, well, that's kind of petty. So what's the first step then? Well, it's a configuration. So it grabs the configuration from the server. Inside is this JSON file, airplay enabled : false. You a bunch of jerks. Like, you can change it at any moment. You don't have to update the app. You go to the server, you're like, false, true. Right? Give me your patchers to do it. So I take burp, do a machine in the middle, change that false to true, and I get an error, invalid signature. I'm like, dang it. So what's the next step? I mean, this is me asking you, what's the next step? Spoof it? Well, you're smarter than I am. I don't know how to do that.
Sign it.
Re-sign it. I can find the key. Keep going. Go with the theme here. Remove it. So I tried to do like a regular expression inside of burp, and honestly, if you have ever used regular expressions, you have one problem you want to solve. You use a regular expression, now you have at least two problems. I accidentally deleted the entire signature, and it worked. The app was like, hey, we should check the signature. Oh, there isn't one? Damn it, I'm scared of it. And it worked just fine. Seen plenty of things like that, right? We'll skip ahead here to a couple of my favorite bug of all time. My favorite bug of all time. This flaw, if you try to log into a MySQL box 1 in every 256 times, it was like, come on. You tried. I call it the Soccer Trophy Participation Award. It's like, you worked really hard to get in. Come on, you can just have access. And I'm trying to imagine a scenario where someone discovered this, where like Nessus happened to hit that on his first try, and somebody's trying to log in, and this stupid thing doesn't work. And they literally write like a loop, like I'm gonna try this over and over again. And like the 250th try, it's like, yeah, fair enough, you tried hard. Here you go, here's all the data. Right? Dead simple stuff works here. Let's talk a little bit about going to Vegas. All right. So there was a competition a number of years ago. If you won this game, you got a black hat badge and a hotel room, black hat convention badge, a wristband, another thing. But I had never been to Black Hat. I'm like, I would really like to go to Black Hat. Cool. So how do we score points? You can score points by installing this on a new device. I was like, okay, cool. So I installed it on a new device, 10 points. Right? I have a lot of friends, so I'm like, I can probably get another 20 points, maybe 30. Right? How else? What's another way where we could get more points using this same sort of thing? Uninstall, reinstall. Yeah, that takes work. Maybe we could get a patcher to do it.
Virtual machines?
Think dumber. Delete it. I don't know what we're deleting here, but I like your train of thought. Well, call back, I like it. No, let's make it.
Change the MAC address?
Let's change the MAC address. No, simpler. Install it again. But when you install it, what's it doing? How are you storing the points? It's sending an API call. So what do? Do it again. Right? Over and over and over and over again. Right? You start spamming this thing over and over again. And it worked. A friend of mine, I figured this out. I was telling a friend of mine about it. And he started scripting it on his side. And we're going like back and forth, back and forth. He's got faster internet than what I had, so I'm using like multiple terminals now to make it go faster. I may or may not have used some work computers so it'll go faster than him. Just saying. And it was Mother's Day. By the way, do not do this. But it was Mother's Day, and I'm doing the math. We're at lunch with my mother-in-law. And I'm looking at my phone, I'm like, I'm gonna pass Tim in about 15 minutes. And he's texting me, he's like, what did you do to go faster? And I'm like, that lunch with my mother-in-law, I'll tell you in about 25 minutes. And then all of a sudden, the whole thing goes dead. It goes dark. And I'm like panicking, because I know I'm still in second place. Comes back up the next day, they're like, hey, cool, we're gonna disable those replay tags. And we take away your points. We're like, hey, this is a hacking game, don't hate the player. Hate your own damn game. Right? So, like, okay, fine, you keep the points. But now I'm still in second place, so I've got to figure out a way around it. So if I do the replay, it says, duplicate device ID. So somebody said it before, let's change device ID. Well, here's what the payload looks like. We say magic equals, data equals. What can we do possibly with this? It's base 64 encoded, right? So we do a quick little decode of that. It looks like this. And if you look at the bottom, it says Android underscore ID and then a number. So what do? Change it. Send it to the server. Now you get a message, invalid magic. What the hell is the magic? Right, we saw that in the payload a little bit before, at the top. I'm guessing it's some sort of checksum, right? Some sort of magic signature. But where's the signature happening? On the device. So all the data, the files are in the computer. We can tell people who have a little bit older data. Yeah. So literally go into a decompiler, look inside, do a search for magic, find a couple of references for magic here. Click on one of those. There's my magic. It's a string. The str, keep an eye on str. str is created here with this variable a2. A2 comes from this function with B. B is data. All right, let's do a little reverse engineering. Let's take a look at that function here. Like I said, I'm not very smart. Give me your gut reaction for what this piece does without trying to reverse engineer it in any way, shape, or form.
Just counts it. Yeah.
Gets the data and turns it into something great.
No.
It's calculating.
Think simple.
There's like 4 increments.
The substrings later. The key here is it says bad base 64. The other little trick here is what base 64 does is it takes 3 characters, converts them into 4. I just guessed, I think it's just all this does is base 64. That was the magic hash. Was they just took the data, base 64 and coded it again, then did the substring and took pieces of that and created magic. Now I can create magic. I am a sorcerer. Right? And we can change that Android ID all day long. And on top of that, I was talking to my friend Tim, former friend Tim, because he's in first place and I'm not. He figured out we can submit all the points at the same time. So you get points for installing, for cracking, for scanning networks, all sorts of stuff. You get it for that. On top of that, there was an identifier that said which tier you were part of, whether it was the free, silver, gold, and platinum or something like that. And if you send you a platinum, you got to multiply it by 2.5. Take that code, change it to platinum now, and now, here's my points. If we score every single thing, by the way, the crack the password feature didn't work in the app, but using this technique, we could still score the points that nobody else could. So we score all the points. If we had 10 plus 5 plus 20 plus etc., we get 142, multiply that by 2.5, 33, 355 points per request time. So I figured this out. Start hammering the server. I get a call at my house to an Israeli phone number. And I'm like, this isn't good, but I'm totally answering this. And they're like, hey, thanks for competing in our thing. I'm like, I didn't know I had my name in there, but apparently I did. Spooky, right? So he's like, hey, good job on this. Can you stop? We were crashing their servers because of the load we were putting on it. And I'm like, yeah, but I really want to go to Black Hat. And I was talking with Tim, and I'm like, I'm just trying to go to Black Hat. Tim says, oh, I'm already going. Thanks, man. Thanks for having a ticket and taking another one. I appreciate that. So we're like, okay, cool, we're done. And the guy on the phone said, hey, if you wouldn't mind, if you stop, we'll give you 500 points bonus for identifying this issue. And I'm like, dude, while we've been talking, I think I scored 1 million points. Like the 500 here, not really gonna matter much, but yeah, so we're off to the races. So we got like Oz here. Oz has a bunch of friends, kind of installed it there. Crispy Priory ended up hitting a bunch of the replay attacks and died. And then there's us. It was going to be like a couple billion points by the end. I did the math on it, but got to that. What I'm trying to get to here is none of these things that we talked about are necessarily super advanced. And many times, the problem and how you identify it or attack it is dead simple. Or the solution to prevent that is just simple. Try the dead simple stuff first. You probably don't need to go to RSA and buy some brand new expensive tool. Just use what you already have. Do some of the basics. Keep it simple. It's easier to understand what exactly is going on when you do things like that. Keep it simple. Another thing I highly suggest is learn from the new people. One of the big things that I get stuck with is my mind is polluted with many ways to solve a problem. Like I understand like the crypto and all this stuff works, and I end up seeing a problem and try to solve it up here because I think I'm smart. And then you ask a new person who has never seen it before, like, hey, did you think of deleting the signature? Right, the dead simple stuff. It works. Get that different perspective. We as security people, especially IT, more senior, we love to tell the more junior people the right way to do things. Or even worse, the right way is fine. The worst though is, well, you could actually use Linux instead. Those kind of answers, right? Where we squash them. Someone's brand new trying to figure something out. They had a moment where they learned something and they're excited. Be happy with them. Don't squash them and be like, well, I knew that 20 years ago. Who cares? You're not adding anything to the conversation. Be happy with them. Encourage that. Right? They had plenty of years to be crushed by the world. Don't be the one that does it. Right? Be happy. You get a different perspective. One of my favorite stories, there was two scenarios. RSA, that encryption, was discovered as basically a joke. They asked one of the guys, like, hey, can you figure out how to do asymmetric encryption? And he sat down and figured it out over his lunch break. He's like, is this the right answer? And he was like, wait, what? Like, nobody knows how to do that. Oh, I thought this was like an interview question kind of thing. Another famous story, there was a professor had 2 math problems on the board. A student came in late, saw the math problems, took it home, came back the next day. He's like, man, those problems you had yesterday were really hard, but I think I got the right answer. And the professor's like, what? We didn't have homework. The problems I've shown on the board are 2 problems that have never been solved by mathematicians. He's like, oh. And I'm sure his mind is like, until now. Right? Like he didn't know that it was a problem and just figured it out. Brand new perspective. Use that brand new for perspective. Don't have to show up. The most, for lack of a better word, powerful senior people that I know are the most unassuming. And they're the first ones to admit, I don't know. I don't have the answer here. And we all know or have worked with somebody who's always the expert in the room. He's that guy, right? Always knows this is the way we're going to do it, this is the right approach, whether it's the right approach or not. Or maybe makes up answers. Yes, it's okay to be the expert in the room, but when you don't know, say, I don't know, and we can collectively move forward. Getting to the point in your career, in life, where you're comfortable saying, I don't know, is incredibly empowering. It gives you the opportunity to say, you know what? Let's go learn. Or somebody teach me. And we all are better off on top of that instead of trying to BS our way through this. Also, I would really encourage you, teach other people. Next year, I would love to see a bunch of you folks on a stage like this. And I know what you're thinking, because I was this way, it was stuck in my head. I don't have anything to talk about that people don't already know. I guarantee you do. You have knowledge on a topic I don't know. You have a perspective on a topic that I and the others don't know. And you can teach a tool that's already out there. Yes, there's other blog posts, YouTube videos. I want your spin on it. Why does it matter to you? Because you're not putting yourself into the story, the presentation, the blog post, the lunch and learn, the email you send to your team, whatever it is, you're like, this is why or how I found this useful. Could I go find information myself? Yeah, maybe. But you're giving it to me. So I would encourage you, find a topic that you're passionate about, that you're interested in, that you're good at, and dig into it. And then go give back. You have some kind of knowledge that I can guarantee you is going to be useful to most of the people here. And frankly, the people who aren't interested in your talk or blog posts aren't going to read it anyway, so who cares? Screw them. Right? Go out there, give back. I can't tell you how much. I was terrified for years of giving a talk. John Strand pulled me aside and said, Tim, when you give a presentation, blog post, whatever, the goal is not to amaze the wizards in the room. First off, there's not very many of them. Second, they're going to be cool. They're not going to come up to you afterwards and make fun of you, because we're all learning something together, and your information is going to be much more broadly accessible and available to the folks who need it. So give back. Find that thing. I encourage you, if you want to develop some of the public speaking, it is a tremendous skill. It can be very valuable, just with confidence, as well as the business world. But go out and do some of that. And I hear people like, well, maybe next year. Maybe next year. If you don't set a date or a time, an event, why is the thing going to change? Right? The definition of crazy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different output. What are you going to do different today, tomorrow, next week? That you're going to change the trajectory of your career, your life, whatever that might be. Right? Go out there, set some goals related to that, and get rolling. Where do you want to be? Right? One of my favorite quotes here, a couple of them. We have one resource in life, time, and we trade it for absolutely everything. You can't get that back. So pick what's interesting to you. Pick what's the thing that's interesting or fascinating, the thing that you want to learn, get better at it. And then, of course, give back. You've got a tremendous opportunity to share with like-minded people. My favorite thing about conferences like this, not the talks. I mean, go to the talks with the speaker, they're going to kill you in the hallway. But it's the people. You can talk to people. Yes, I know a lot of introverts, but you can find like-minded people who are interested in the same thing as you, or they have knowledge that you want to learn. Go up to the speakers afterwards, ask them questions. I can almost guarantee it, the speakers are going to love that. They have put a tremendous amount of time, effort, and into their presentation, the stuff that they've worked on, and when people ask them questions about it, in a way, it feels good. You're like, hey, somebody actually cared. That was actually useful to them. And it makes you both better. So find other people. I encourage you today, find other folks in a similar line of work, what you want to do, some technology you want to get into, ask some of those questions, make some of those connections. Because I found jobs through things like this, right? They say it's not what you know, it's who you know. 100% stand by it. All right, I know we're going a little over, but we started late, so that's okay. Right. Just like American Airlines. All right, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate everybody.